The next era of Formula One isn't going to be won by the guy with the most downforce or even the fastest engine. It's going to be won by the driver who can brake like a surgeon, while the car is trying to steal his battery, steal his balance, and steal his confidence at the exact same time. And that's why 2026 might quietly become Max Verstappen's most unfair advantage yet. Because the biggest change no one is truly talking about isn't active aero, it isn't the new overtake mode, it's the one thing that decides whether those features even work. Braking. In 2026, braking won't just slow the car down. Braking will decide how much electric power you're allowed to use on the next straight, how stable the rear is into the corner, and whether you're attacking or helplessly defending. And Max? Max already drives like the sport was built for that future. Here's the part that should scare everyone. 2026 is designed to put more power in the driver's hands through energy deployment, harvesting, and conservation. Meaning racecraft isn't just about bravery anymore, it's about control. Which means the grid is about to be split into two groups. Drivers who can manage the system, and drivers who can weaponize it. Now let me give you the real hook, the detail your brain should lock onto. The 2026 power unit shifts toward a near 50-50 split between internal combustion and electric power, with much more electric energy involved than today. And where does that electrical energy come from? A huge part of it comes from braking, because the MGU-K recovers energy every time you slow the car down. So suddenly, braking late isn't just a flex, it's income. It's literally how you earn the right to attack later. And if you're thinking, okay cool, everyone brakes hard, you're missing the key difference. Most drivers brake to survive the corner. Max brakes to control the entire sequence of the lap. That's not hype. That's the difference between braking as a moment and braking as a system. Here's the biggest reveal. This is where 2026 becomes dangerous for everyone trying to catch him. Active aerodynamics is coming, meaning the cars will switch between higher downforce for corners and lower drag for straights. And that sounds simple until you realize what it actually does. It changes the car's stability. And when you change stability, you change braking confidence. So the 2026 car can feel like two different cars in one lap, one for the corner, one for the straight. Now combine that with the new energy tactics. You're arriving at a braking zone not just thinking, can I outbrake him? You're thinking, if I brake this way, do I recharge enough to defend with extra power later? So the future isn't just who is brave, it's who is accurate. Who can hit the same braking point, the same pedal pressure, the same release timing, while also setting up the battery for the next part of the lap. And that is exactly where Max lives. People call him aggressive, but his real advantage is something scarier. He's efficient with violence. He creates rotation with the brake, not with panic steering. He doesn't chuck the car into corners, he places it. And yes, it's trail braking, that controlled bleed off of brake pressure into the corner that keeps the front loaded and lets the car rotate without snapping. But in 2026, trail braking becomes more than technique. It becomes battery management without looking like battery management. It becomes free lap time. Because if you can keep the car balanced while recovering energy, you can brake later and exit faster. Most drivers will trade one for the other. Max is one of the few who regularly gets both. Here's the cruel part. The grid is full of drivers who look fast when the car is predictable. But 2026 is designed to be unpredictable by design. Active aero modes changing the car's behavior. New deployment rules that force new decisions. More reliance on electrical power than most fans are mentally prepared for. That's not a driving era, that's a rhythm era. And rhythm is where Max breaks people. Because if you're chasing him, you're not just chasing a car, you're chasing a driver who turns every braking zone into a trap. Imagine a 2026 battle down a long straight. The car ahead is in low drag mode, the car behind is close enough to unleash extra power. You hit the braking zone. But the guy behind has a problem. If he brakes too hard, too late, too messy, he overheats tires, destabilizes the rear, and he can't recover energy cleanly. So he might win the corner and lose the lap. Max won't do that. Max will make the braking zone clean enough to harvest what he needs, and still rotate the car into a position that blocks the switchback. This is where you start understanding how a braking advantage becomes a championship advantage. Because 2026 isn't just about speed. It's about how many options you can create per lap. And Max creates options by being repeatable. Same inputs, same references, Same confidence, even when the car is on the edge. Now here comes the uncomfortable political part. Every team will claim their 2026 concept is efficient. But there's going to be a reality they can't escape. Some cars will be naturally stable under braking, and some won't. And when a car is unstable under braking, it doesn't matter how much power you have. You won't be able to use it. So teams will build cars for different drivers again, and that's when the Verstappen effect hits hardest. Because Red Bull has built years of philosophy around a sharp front end and a driver who can handle rotation at insane speeds. If 2026 creates a world where drivers are constantly balancing energy recovery, aero mode behavior, and braking stability, then the driver who already treats braking like a weapon has a head start you can't fake. Now here's the irony that should make you laugh and worry at the same time. Fans think the new overtaking system will make racing easier, but it might make racing harder. Because it's not just pressing a button, it's a resource game with consequences. Boost too early and you're exposed later. Harvest too much and you lose entry speed. Don't harvest enough and you can't defend. So this isn't a gimmick, it's a skill filter. And Max is exactly the kind of driver skill filters were invented to reveal. Quick reality check. Do you know what happens when a driver feels the rear moving under braking? His confidence collapses. He brakes 5 meters earlier, then 10, then he stops attacking. That's how domination starts, not through raw pace, but through psychological erosion. And Max has built entire seasons doing that to people. So when 2026 puts even more pressure on braking zones as energy harvesting moments, the driver who stays calm in those zones becomes terrifying. And the smartest viewers already know where this is going, so you're basically already subscribed in spirit, because this is the kind of detail casual fans never even notice until it's too late. But let's take it deeper, because this is where it turns into a real nightmare for the grid. Active aero means braking zones become more complex. You could arrive with low drag, then switch to high downforce, and the car's balance changes in the first half second of braking. That is a new skill. And if you can't adapt instantly, you'll either lock a tyre or you'll play it safe. And playing it safe in F1 is another way of saying you're finished. Because if you're the guy braking early, you are feeding the guy behind you clean harvesting chances to set up an attack later. Yes, braking earlier can ironically help the driver behind recharge and attack you more aggressively later. So defense becomes an art form, and Max lives for defensive art. This is where 2026 could create something we haven't seen in years. A Verstappen advantage that isn't about the fastest car. It's about the fastest decision loop, braking point, harvest amount, rotation angle, exit traction, deployment timing. That chain becomes one continuous skill. And Max is one of the only drivers who makes those chains look effortless. If you enjoy this kind of breakdown, you're not a casual fan, you're in the Racecraft Detectives Club, where we don't just watch overtakes, we watch why they were inevitable. So here's the question that will split the comments instantly. In 2026, does Max's braking style become the ultimate advantage? Or does it finally backfire when the car changes personality mid-lap? Pick a side. And don't do the safe answer. Commit. Because if you're wrong, the season will embarrass you in public. Now, consequences. Everyone is talking about who will build the best 2026 engine. But even the best engine won't save you if your driver can't extract the lap. And extraction in 2026 will be decided in the braking phase more than any other phase. Because braking is where you load the tyres, set the corner, and refill the battery. And that battery decides whether your extra power is a threat or a placebo. Here's what nobody wants to admit. 2026 could expose good drivers. Because a good driver can look great in stable conditions. A great driver looks great in unstable conditions. And if you think the new cars are going to be stable with active aero and energy recovery pressure, you're about to watch a lot of very talented people suddenly look human. Now the story flips. The reason Max's braking superpower matters isn't just because it helps him go faster. It changes how everyone else races him. If Max can brake later and harvest efficiently, then he can afford to spend energy aggressively on the straight. He can attack without fear. He can defend without panic. And most importantly, he can force you into choices you hate. If you're behind him, you have to choose. Do you attack and burn energy early, knowing he can harvest it back? Or do you wait and watch him control the pace while you cook your tyres? That's not a racing battle. That's a psychological hostage situation. And it gets worse because the new era gives drivers more tactical tools, meaning Max will have more ways to trap you, more ways to bait you, more ways to make you waste your best chance. So the Verstappen advantage becomes invisible. Fans will say he just had more pace, but the truth will be that Max had more options, because braking gives him the currency to buy those options. Now imagine two rival teams entering 2026 with similar power. One has a driver who brakes clean, consistent, surgical. The other has a driver who is explosive but messy. Over a lap, the messy driver loses energy recovery. Over a race, he loses deployment. Over a season, he loses confidence. That's why braking becomes the root skill of the era. And Max has been training for that era his whole life. So yes, you should be excited about 2026. But you should also be nervous, because if Red Bull nails the car concept even slightly, this regulation reset might not reset anything at all. It might just create a new version of domination, where the gap doesn't come from aerodynamics alone, it comes from the one place you can't copy, the driver's foot. And if you want to keep following this story as it unfolds, how Max adapts, how rivals respond, and which teams quietly panic first, you already know where we're going next. Because the next piece of the puzzle isn't the braking zones, it's the active aero mind game that could completely rewrite overtaking in 2026. That's the next video you need, because if braking is the currency, active aero decides how fast you can spend it. Go watch that next, and tell me in the comments which team you think will understand this era first. Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, or the one everyone is sleeping on.